The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own. They may not be the opinions of this network, their groups, or other organizations they may be involved in.
Meditation, ganja, my brain. Ganja, we take away my stress and strain. Ganja, my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana, take away my stress and pain. Ganja, my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana, take away the stress and pain. Ganja is the medication, ganja is the cure. Police of them a fight the marijuana for sure. Purify me heavens and they make me feel pure. 100 ways to Cali, we be bring it on tour. Ganja in the meditation, ganja in my clothes. No offense, I'm smoking marijuana around you. Ganja in the daily, ganja me currency. Ganja is the currency and daily pay. Give me the revelation, it's not to get too much credit, it's been growing so long, that's why we call it.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Ganja News Update for this Monday, November the 24th, 2025. And we are at episode 146 here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on cannabis news being reported in mainstream media. And I'm joined by my amazing joint host, Tara Simpson, right on over here. Good morning, Tara, and how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Been another busy week, lots of bumps in the road. Particularly not good bumps in the road, but things, are okay otherwise. Went away on the weekend and saw all my family in Stratford, and we all get together for like family Christmas, but we don't rent a hall anymore and do like a potluck because it's just too chaotic and there's too many of us and not all of us can make it. And so it's gotten smaller over the years, but we got together at a local restaurant and, I think there was about 35 of us. So it was a good time. Both my kids were able to make it this year. So that was nice. Last year it was just Brandon who came with me, but this year Courtney and her partner Bryson and my son's girlfriend Nicole joined us. So it was nice. A little chaotic with the 4 younger rugrats running all over the place, which tends to happen. I mean, they can't help it when they're little.
Especially after dessert, right?
This was all before dinner.
So I can only imagine what it was like after. Unless they were just all tired.
Because we didn't really stick around. After dinner, everyone jetted pretty quick. But we had been there for a number of hours, as you can imagine, in a busy restaurant with an added, 35 people all ordering apps and all ordering food. It took a little while to get us all served. And by the time we all chatted and ate and desserted, then it was time to go home because we'd been there for hours.
Right. But I bet you that time felt like it went pretty quick though, right?
It did. It was like you almost felt like you didn't make it around the room to have enough conversations because you were so busy getting caught up with the few that you were chatting with nearby that it was hard to, get that circle of conversation going. In that sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But you know what? That just leads to looking forward to the next time, right?
Yeah. And even funnier, the waitress brought me my bill and I realized just how old I am getting because, of course, like when I do these shows, I wear these little readers so I can read some of the smaller article prints that we get, especially off of my phone. And she brings me this bill. And I'm looking at it and I'm doing one of these. And of course, I don't have readers with me. And I looked at my Aunt Carol, and my Aunt Carol is 73. You wouldn't know it to look at this little firecracker, but she's 73 and she wears readers. And I said to her, like, Aunt Carol, no disrespect, but can I borrow your readers? Because at that moment, I realized I could not see what was written on this paper.
Wow.
Right. So you're getting up there when you gotta borrow your auntie's readers.
I wear bifocals.
I'm thinking I might need an eye exam. I mean, I haven't had one in many, many, many years, so it might be time.
It might be time. Yeah. But have no line bifocals though, so you don't have to stare at that line.
Right.
Anyways, I guess we better get on. Time is moving on. We should get on with the show. And we've got a great set of stories here today. And first one we got coming up is one that we had skipped over last week. Just ran out of time. We had such a great show last week. So we're going to cover this one now. And it is possible we might end up having to drop one show or one story a little later on. We'll just see how time goes here on the show. But this one here, first one is coming to us from Leafy. Fewer than 1% of UK doctors trained to prescribe medical cannabis. 7 years after the legalization of medical cannabis, thousands of patients remain without access as institutional support lags behind demand. And this is from Liam O'Dowd on published on November 12th, 2025. 7 years since medical cannabis was legalized in the UK, fewer than 1% of the country's approximately 100,000 doctors on the General Medical Council, the GMC, specialist register have the training required to prescribe medical cannabis. Whilst the UK's medical cannabis market has evolved rapidly, with patient demand and private sector supply accelerating year on year, public institutions have failed to keep pace. Universities have yet to integrate cannabis-based products for medicinal use, or CBPMs, into medical curricula. The NHS offers no centralized guidance or training programs, and major health bodies remain largely silent on clinical use. Data from Prohibition Partners suggests that nearly 80,000 patients in the U.S. will receive medical cannabis treatment in 2025, and that's expected to rise to almost 190,000 people by 2029, generating an estimated market value of 619 euros or 539 million pounds. Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. The UK is now the second largest medical cannabis market in Europe, yet public healthcare institutions have failed to keep pace with demand. Universities have not integrated cannabis-based products for medicinal use into the medical curricula, while NHS offers no centralized guidance or training programs. According to a recent all-party parliamentary group report, approximately 3 to 4% of the population may benefit from a cannabis prescription. However, the number of medical cannabis prescriptions issued by the NHS remains extremely low, with estimates suggesting fewer than 5 prescriptions to date. Oh my fuck, that's disgusting. I'm sorry, but that's just disgusting. Right. I mean, okay, I get they've only had medical cannabis for, say, 7 years or 10 years. We've had it in Canada for much longer, and Europe is normally that much further ahead of us healthcare wise, with treatments and options and stuff. And historically speaking, so why are they so dead set on not giving patients access and using this as a first line of defense in a lot of these medical issues? And not educating themselves. I'm sorry, you're a doctor. Your job is to follow science, and science has shown for many, many years that this is actually a good alternative medicine and first line of defense for pain, for depression, for a lot of things by different modes of consumption, right? So like this just drives me nuts that they're saying that again, it's fewer than 5 prescriptions to date of the approximate 100,000 doctors on the GMC specialist register who are legally permitted to initiate a medical cannabis prescription. Only 180 clinicians are currently doing so, less than 1%. Again, that is mind blowing. So you're telling me there's 100,000 doctors that have registered and are legally allowed to do this, and only 180 of them are actually doing so. You can't tell me that the rest of them don't have patients that would fit in this criteria.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
make it make sense, right?
exactly. Professor Mike Barnes, chair of the Medical Cannabis Clinicians Society, says that the lack of education is a key barrier. Well, I'm sorry. Like, okay, so maybe the universities aren't putting together a formal training program, but how about you use your brains, get online, and use,
Right.
all of those modalities that are out there to do your own research. Maybe go talk to existing medical cannabis patients around the world. Tune into one of these shows. We'll tell you,
Right.
living proof, and we all have different issues, and we're all using cannabis, and we're all benefiting. So what does that tell you? That this could be a multi-purpose medication for your patients. Again, they just, if it's not, doesn't come from a university approved textbook, they don't seem to want to listen. But patients' voices matter. It's just the way it is. Yeah. So we urgently need to train more clinicians in the science of cannabis medicine, Professor Barnes said. We are barely touching the surface of those who would benefit from medical cannabis. Yeah, no shit. Many tens of thousands of people living with chronic anxiety, pain, sleep problems, epilepsy, and other conditions are being deprived of access due to both the intrasignix of NHS and specifically the lack of knowledge and education about the plant. In an attempt to bridge this education gap, hundreds of healthcare professionals will gather in London on the 25th of November, 2025 for the Cannabis Health Symposium. Presented in partnership with Curaleaf Laboratories and the MCCS, the one-day educational event is designed to provide UK healthcare professionals with expert-led, clinically grounded education on cannabis-based products for medicinal use to meet the growing patient demand for medical cannabis to treat a range of conditions. Jonathan Hodgson, CEO at Curaleaf Laboratories, said, while the adaptation of medical cannabis is still only in its infancy here in the UK, we want to help widen access to this as a viable option for patients. Through our experience, we're in the privileged position to be ready to help the hundreds of thousands of patients in the UK who will have access to these medicines over the coming years. In order for us to, as medical community, to adequately support patients, it's vitally important that healthcare professionals are able to access much needed education on cannabis-based medicines so they can help their patients through guided access or prescribing directly, Hodgson said. So that's pretty cool that Curaleaf, and I mean, they've been around forever. In fact, I think Curaleaf at one time was a pre-legalization company. They were a legacy industry company, I do believe, in some way. But I'm not 100%. They've been around. Like, I've seen their stuff for a very long time. So that's cool that they're stepping up to try and make a difference with education, because obviously the universities aren't doing it for these doctors, right?
Exactly. So yeah, education is key, and they're way behind. Absolutely. Way behind.
Yeah.
So anyways, we got our next story here. Do you mind starting this one off for us?
For sure. So this one comes to us from stratcan.com. Canadian cannabis sales and inventory Q1 2025. Market share shifts and inventory increases. And this was written by Sarah Clark on November 16th of this year. The newest sales and inventory figures from the Government of Canada reveal significant shifts in the Canadian cannabis market for Q1 2025, January to March. The total medical and non-medical sales are up 17% year over year, driven by a continued decline in the dried cannabis market share, which dipped below 50% for the first time. Dried cannabis market share continued to slow but steadily decline, dropping 1% percentage point from the previous quarter's 50% to 49%, and it is down from 52% year over year. Meanwhile, edibles increased by 2 percentage points to 26%, while concentrates held steady at 25%. Cannabis seeds saw a 59% drop from 10,497 units to 4,364 units. Cannabis topicals increased 79% from 53,957 units sold to 96,334 units sold. And vegetative cannabis saw a spike in increasing from 712 to 1,672 units. Wow, that's really cool that cannabis topicals are on the rise. Because again, that's a huge game changer for a lot of people with chronic pain that maybe don't want to consume because it gets you high. Well, topicals won't, but it will treat your pain. So that's really a cool increase to see happening. And seeds, because that means people are growing for themselves.
Right. But the seeds, it's a 59% drop though. So that to me seems there's less people buying the seeds. Now maybe they're getting seeds from other sources. Maybe they're growing their own seeds.
That could be too, right?
These numbers can't discern that.
Maybe
but
they
if you
weren't
see
happy with the seeds from the OCS area, right? Yeah. That could be too.
But then there's also vegetative cannabis plants saw a spike. Not a huge spike, but a spike more than 50%. Well, more than 50%.
Right.
So more than double. So maybe more people are going and buying clones than seeds.
Right.
Clones or young plants, if you can.
Right. So maybe for some people, it's easier to get it from a clone than to try and start their own seed and go through that whole process, right?
Right. So these numbers are interesting. Now, getting back to the topicals real quick, these numbers here are non-medical and medical. I would be interested to have that topical split off to see how much percentage is on the medical side and what percentage on the recreation side.
Right. How many
which has bigger
patients are going and buying it at OCS versus being prescribed it through a licensed producer from a doctor, right? So is it touching a new untapped market outside of a doctor prescribing it? Would be interesting to see as well.
Yeah. So anyways, total packaged inventory across all product types rose 16% from March 2024. Total packaged inventory units of dried cannabis increased 10% year over year, while packaged units of edibles increased 20%. Total packaged units in inventory of cannabis extracts increased 21% year over year compared to January to March 2024. As of January 2025, Health Canada's quarterly figures no longer provide detailed inventory and sales data for each product category. All figures for dried cannabis, edible cannabis, cannabis extracts, cannabis topicals, cannabis plants, cannabis seeds, and licensed area and employment info through 2024 are now archived. These figures come from data reported under Health Canada's Cannabis Tracking System order, and there's a clickable link there for that. Medical and non-medical sales. While dried cannabis flower remains the most commonly sold unit in the non-medical adult use cannabis market, edibles have continued to dominate sales in the medical market. Cannabis extracts and dried flower have been competing for the distant second place spot, but cannabis extracts have claimed that place from October 2024 to March through March 2025. There's a bit of a graph there. And micros dominate new licenses. Over the 12-month period from April 2024 to March 2025, Health Canada issued 100 new federal cannabis licenses. There's a link there. The majority of these majority of these, 65 of them, were micros, while 29 were standard license holders. Only 2 were cannabis nurseries, and 4 were medical sales only licenses. There are currently, as of November 16th, 2025, 917 active federal cannabis licenses, and there are 482 micro license holders, 398 standard license holders, which comprises of cultivation and/or processing, 18 cannabis nursery license holders, and 19 medical sales only license holders. Wow. And as of March 31st, 2025, there had been 364 licenses revoked at the request of the license holder, 17 licenses revoked by Health Canada, and 53 expired licenses for a total of 434 inactivated licenses. And a graph there as well. So some interesting numbers there to see. And yeah, it just gives you an idea of what's happening out in the marketplace, and that on the Canadian cannabis landscape. So it's we're moving on to our last story here.
Years watching it all unfold, eh?
Because it was 2018 was legalization came in. I think it's been a few years now, and there's been a really rocky road and lots of bumps and twists and turns and loop-de-loops. And you're starting to see a lot of stuff kind of settle out right now a bit. But I think there's going to be another bit of a shift and shake up out there.
Yeah, I think you'll see that as like some of the regulations shift and rules change about certain things. And, you know, that happens as it evolves, I guess. So it'll be all up to our policymakers as to how that looks coming forward. Because if they don't make the right changes, well, then it's not going to be pretty.
Which leads us right into our next story here. Coming to us from Marijuana Moments. Trump administration sees marijuana as a hazard. Federal prosecutor says, drawing criticism from lawmakers and advocates. So this isn't. So it's interesting that lawmakers and advocates are having issues with this.
Exactly. And it's just because it's, I guess, become so political. And as we know, even here in Canada, it was a political move. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Right. So this here, I guess, is a kind of a follow-up story on the recent developments out of the U.S. With upcoming legislation changes or whatever with regards to hemp, THC and stuff, I think that's what this is about. I'm not 100% sure. So anyways, we'll find out. This story was published on November 17th, 2025 by Kyle Yeager. Okay, no. Okay, this is something different. Okay, let's see. Lawmakers and advocates are pushing back after a U.S. attorney announced his office will be aggressively prosecuting cannabis possession and use offenses on federal lands, stating that it's the administration's position that marijuana use is a public safety hazard. Okay, so I did not read this story ahead of time, so I was way off base on what this is about. What?
Right.
So, yeah, wow. U.S. Attorney for the District of Wyoming, Darren Smith, caught some by surprise on Thursday after his office said it would be rigorously prosecuting cannabis cases while citing a recent reversal on previously unpublicized Biden-era marijuana enforcement guidance that deprioritized such action. There's a quote here: marijuana possession remains a federal crime in the United States, irrespective of varying state laws, Smith says. The detrimental effects of drugs on our society are undeniable, and I am committed to using every prosecutorial tool available to hold offenders accountable. He doubled down on that position in comments to telling the local outlet, this administration thinks that marijuana use is a public safety hazard, and this office is going to uphold the law and ensure safety and security of the public within our jurisdiction. Marijuana Moment reached out to the White House for clarification on Donald Trump's position on cannabis, but a representative did not provide comment by the time of publication. Of course not, right?
Right. I mean, why would they? Wow. Why would they? I mean, that's a pretty bold double down with considering everything that's happening globally with cannabis and it being legal or decriminalized or at least medical. And it seems that now we're going backwards again. And I don't understand why this mentality. It drives me to no end. Why? Why do we have to do this?
Right.
Well, the question remains as to the specific of both the Biden and Trump related marijuana prosecutorial guidance actions. The federal attorney's message has added to the uncertainty around how the current administration views its enforcement role as federal and state cannabis laws continue to conflict. Right. Here we go again, right? They're allowed to have it at a state level, but not at a federal level. So how does that work, right? Their federal government needs to step up, whereas our federal government legalized it and then left it up to our so-called states, I'll say provinces, because that's what they are, but to basically make their own policies. Right? Yeah. So you're damned on both sides. Like they did it one way here, and in some places you still can't use cannabis in Canada because that particular province has issues with it. And then here they are where you can have it in states, but the federal level they're gonna string them up, right?
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, U.S. Representative Dina Titus, Democrat, co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, told Marijuana Moments that simple cannabis possession is not a threat to public safety, and it's not ridiculous to justify the what? That didn't make sense to me. Hang on, I got to read that again. U.S. Republican Dina Titus, co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, told Marijuana Moments that simple cannabis possession is not a threat to public safety. And it's ridiculous to justify the prosecution of individuals with an outdated law that does not reflect the current use of cannabis in the United States. The federal government needs to catch up on this. States recognize the legitimate industry that has emerged, dismantle the stigma surrounding the plant, and reform its outdated scheduling of marijuana as a dangerous drug, she said. Absolutely.
That sounds like common sense to me. Right?
Yeah. So why do they want to keep going round and round and round?
Great. The notice from the U.S. Attorney's Office came just one day after President Donald Trump signed a key spending bill that contains provisions. So this is bringing this up into the story here too. That contains provisions to ban consumable hemp products with THC, a move that industry stakeholders say would eradicate the market that's emerged since the president signed the 2018 Farm Bill legalizing the crop during his first term. The enforcement policy change also overlaps with an ongoing marijuana rescheduling process that the president said in late August would be decided within a matter of weeks. It is stunning to hear U.S. Attorney for Wyoming, Darren Smith, brag about his intention to waste our tax dollars prioritizing prosecutions for cannabis possession on federal land. Adam Smith, executive director of the Marijuana Policy Project, MPP, told Marijuana Moment, "We're not talking about large-scale illegal grow operations here. We're talking about possession, people who may be hiking or camping with friends. Surely, there are far greater threats to the safety of Wyoming residents than adults passing a joint around a campfire miles from civilization," he said. The fact that Smith would put out a press release so clearly demonstrating that his augmentism outstrips his prosecutorial judgment indicates that he should have never been entrusted with the awesome responsibility of his office. Paul Armentano, deputy director of Normal, told Marijuana Moment that while it's unclear to what degree federal prosecutions of minor marijuana offenses on federal lands were curtailed under the prior administration, the Justice Department's about face on this matter is inappropriate and misguided. And nearly half of all the U.S. states have now legalized cannabis possession, and most Americans say that consuming cannabis should no longer be a crime. They certainly don't want federal resources directed towards these misplaced priorities, particularly during these difficult and uncertain economic times, he said. Further, this policy decision undermines Trump's own comments while on the campaign trail when he said, "We do not need to ruin lives and waste taxpayers' money arresting adults with personal amounts of it on them."
Right? Exactly. I mean, it's really kind of silly what they're doing. Meanwhile, a White House spokesperson told Marijuana Moment on Wednesday that there is a process ongoing regarding the notice of proposed rulemaking on rescheduling marijuana from May 2024, and all policy and legal requirements and implications are being considered. Trump endorsed rescheduling as well as marijuana industry banking access and a Florida adult use legalization initiative that ultimately failed on the campaign trail ahead of his election to the second term. But when he was pressed on the status of the rescheduling process in mid-August, he was less clear about his personal stance. The administration was only looking at that reform, and it's too early to say how the issues will be decided, he said at the time, adding that it's a very complicated subject. It's not complicated. It's not dangerous. End of story. Like, how is it complicated? I don't get this, right? Like, make it make sense to my brain. Why can these people not see what we see? Right? Like, this information's out here.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Mind blowing. Like, are they robots that need to be programmed? And maybe that programming just didn't happen because, I mean, at the end of the day, most people have logic and common sense and can do their own research. And the research is out there. There's more research out there showing it's good and it's okay and it's not dangerous than there is the other way that isn't government issued propaganda. Right. So I don't know.
But look at this. I'm not going to read this. We're going to finish the story off here, but look at this last paragraph of the story. Separately, the president last month posted a video on his Truth Social platform promoting the health benefits of cannabis, suggesting that covering CBD under Medicare would be the most important senior health initiative of the century. But yet, look at the legislation that was just brought in.
Right.
It's harm patients because they're not going to be able to get the products that they need or whatever that's already out there. I don't know. There's some other way I think that they need to deal with the unregulated or the questionable synthetic THCs and stuff, how they're deriving it from other things. If it is harmful, I don't think the way that they're going about it right now is the best way.
No, absolutely not. Especially when, I mean, you just finished saying it's good and we want it covered and this and that. So, like, stop pissing around, people.
Right. Exactly. Why are we still here talking about this today?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it. Anyways, we got to go to break. Time is moving on. We probably will drop our last story. We'll probably just cover the next two when we get back. We'll just see how the time is. And we'll go from there. But it is medication time right now.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our amazing sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles making mainstream media news.
That's right. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. In fact, 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Ganja News Update on NOK Network. Cheers.
Are you frantically pounding away on your keyboard these days? To discuss your views, share your passions, teach a skill, or share a craft to the masses on social media. Podcasting is a bright light that can help you reach a diverse audience. And the NOK Network can help. Even if you have no experience, NOK Network will work with you to develop your content to air on our diverse network to reach a wide audience, allowing us to grow together. Podcasts are aired on multiple platforms simultaneously across social media and streaming sites live through our network. Contact us and let's chat about how we can help you develop your podcast and join the NOK team.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyndinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals,
Go ahead,
Tyndinaga.
hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Check us out in Tyndinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyndinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at knocknetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@noknetwork.com.
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Ganja News Updates on NOK Network.
That's right. And we have another set of stories coming at you making cannabis news. So let's get at it. And our next story here is, whoops, hold on. There we go. I was used to doing my background, my screen set for my morning show there for a second.
Right, yeah.
For the screen. So anyways, there we go. We got CTV News up on the screen here. And this is Brazil's Agricultural Research Agency gets cannabis research green light. And this is by Reuters initially. And it was published November 21st, 2025. And it goes on here to say, coming out of Sao Paulo, is that how you say, I guess? Sao Paulo?
Yeah.
Brazilian Agricultural Research Agency, Embrapa, has received the green light from health agency Anvisa to research the cannabis plant, a landmark move that puts farming powerhouse Brazil a step closer towards authorizing its cultivation. In an interview Friday, Embrapa researcher Danielle Bittencourt welcomed Anvisa's decision this week, which gives the agency unprecedented permission to build its first ever cannabis seed bank and develop projects to genetically improve the plant for various applications. Embrapa will also research hemp used to produce fibers, Bittencourt said. This is only the beginning, Bittencourt said by telephone from Brasilia. Our plan is to carry out research for 12 years, but it may possibly go on forever, like what happens with soy and corn. Similar research efforts from Embrapa since the 1970s opened up vast regions of Brazil for large-scale soybean farming, kicking off a significant increase in the country's output of the oilseed to make it the world's largest producer and exporter. Wow.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, I mean, with the research, come on, the research been done on hemp fiber. It's out there. What are you researching? What are you wasting money on? Like, research ways you can actually use it maybe in your country. Being it's Brazil, I mean, they do get some Amazonian weather and, their economy, affordable housing. So like things like hempcrete, which we already have, because that's already a thing, could be something they could also be making there to feed the local economies there and build housing. So again, with this research, it just drives me crazy. Like, how many millions of dollars do we need to keep researching the same plant for when the research is already there? Yeah, they're not doing new research.
Can you imagine if the amount of just switching, they're talking about research money, but can you imagine if the amount of money that is devoted to cancer research, cures for cancer research, if they were to even take just a small, very small percentage of that total that gets donated and raised for that and apply it to research for cannabis towards cancer treatment, I wonder where we would be today.
100% agree, Ron.
Let's just
100%.
Just a small, very small percentage of the total of the amount of money that's all devoted to cannabis, cancer research in general.
But I don't think there's been any studies paid for by that money to do with cannabis and cancer. Don't quote me, but I'd be very shocked if it existed. Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Embrapa scientists who breed genetic varieties of grain, cotton, and vegetables best suited for Brazil's tropical climate applied in September of 2024 for authorization from health agency Anvisa to carry out cannabis research. Embrapa's work may also grab international attention from cannabis companies, which have shown interest in Brazil's potential for the development and domestic sale of medicinal and industrial cannabis products for a long time. An initial 13 million Reza, so 2.4 million US in public funding will immensely be released to fund Embrapa's cannabis research. Bittencourt said, adding the agency is open to studying the plant in partnership with the private sector. Despite recent delays, Bittencourt also said she is confident that by March 2026, Anvisa will issue pending regulations for cannabis cultivation in Brazil after a court ruling obliged it to do so in November 2024. In 2019, Anvisa had approved regulations for the rollout of medicinal cannabis products, but in a separate vote blocked a proposal to allow domestic medical marijuana plantations. In the decision authorizing Embrapa's cannabis research, Anvisa said it is developing rules for growing cannabis for medicinal and scientific purposes. Planting and selling recreational marijuana remains prohibited in Brazil, though purchasing and possessing up to 40 grams of marijuana for personal use is no longer a crime. Well, thank God it's no longer a crime, but
Right.
you know, like, yeah,
But it's
that's
still only
wild.
40 grams, but
Yeah,
we
we're allowed to have what, 2
30.
ounces, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. Very interesting.
Small baby steps, but still a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
But
Mind blowing.
At least there's steps.
Yeah, that's true.
But hey, let's hope the steps stay forward, though, not like the U.S., where it looks like a couple steps back.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to move on to this story here now. And this one here, do you mind taking this one off for us?
Sure. So this one comes to us from mjbizdaily.com. Can functional THC move cannabis past the potency race? And this was written by Sally Blackman on November 17th of this year. For years, THC percentage has dictated price, perception, and bragging rights up and down the cannabis supply chain from seed to sale. But as operators seek to break the cycle of THC addiction and consumers looking for clarity, focus, and calm over couch locking highs, functional THC is emerging as the legal industry's next measure of value. Cannabis advocates for years have tried to convince consumers that THC percentage is at best an unreliable indicator of product quality and even effects without much success. But now, encouraged by wellness culture, the popularity of microdosing, and a sober, curious generation, the functional THC movement is driving manufacturers to design products with precise cannabinoid ratios and measurable impacts. Brands like Level in California, Eaton Botanicals in New York are helping defining what functional means. Demand for effect-driven products has continued to arise, said Chris Emerson, CEO of Level, an edibles company that markets tablets for specific activities like gaming. The market is moving away from generic this will relax you marketing towards formulations that deliver distinct, repeatable experiences through cannabinoid ratios and dose, he added. The move towards functional THC also reflects a maturing market where consumers are finally rethinking potency as a benchmark for quality. That's interesting.
Yeah. So basically, what we say about like the high THC, and I was just talking about this on my morning show this morning. The high THC doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot.
No.
Like
no.
It's creating that good balance, and sometimes a lower THC with just a little bit of THC mixed in with CBD and or other cannabinoids can produce what we call that entourage effect. And what people are looking for, what it sounds like, is they're not looking to necessarily be high all the time, although there is tolerance, but there's people that don't necessarily need to consume enough to be able to build up a tolerance. So they still don't want to get high per se, but they still want to get the medicinal and therapeutic benefits that can be had from the plant.
Hence the functional, right? They don't want to just be couch locked necessarily and then not gain anything for it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting that the rumblings that you hear among people are coming out in these stories like this, that people, it's being talked about enough that it's being put out there into the public and backing up what we all have been saying all along, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not about getting high, it's about getting better.
Absolutely.
That was what was it? Rest in peace, Gary Pallister.
Yeah.
It's not about the high, it's about getting better, right?
Yeah.
Although the high is sometimes pretty decent sometimes, right?
Yeah,
But
it has its place, right?
it has its place. So anyways, here we go. Carry on here. Consumers are buying for how they want to feel, not how high they can get. There you go. Whether you can trust the numbers or not. And according to my many watchdogs, you can't. Data shows average THC levels in the U.S. flower have climbed steadily over the past several years. That's a reflection of how potency ruled the roost. But that mindset is changing. According to BDSA, cannabis beverages and low-dose edibles with their predictable onset and controllable effects are among the fastest-growing product categories at cannabis retailers. Observers say this shows consumers want controlled experiences. They want the same kind of dependable function they expect from caffeine or supplements. So that's cool that people are seeing cannabis as a supplement.
Yes, that's very cool.
A nutritional and like just beneficial supplement to their general well-being. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
And I think that will go a long way to start breaking down stigmas too.
Yeah.
As more people talk about it in this sense, right?
Right. I mean, you've got people who are using it for like workouts, right? Because it helps them feel better. It helps, reduce the strain on their muscles because they're more relaxed in some ways, or whatever they're using it for their physical fitness. Well, and these are stoners, right?
No, and quite often it's pre and
right. Yeah. These are
quite
people
often it's
who are using it for health.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So quite often it's pre and post workout as well, right?
Absolutely.
And it's intentional use, not just sitting there and just before you do a workout and ripping 5 bong rips and getting ripped out of your mind and then go and do a whole bunch of sets of reps and stuff, right? No, no, it's for creating focus and calmness and balance, really. And then post-workout recovery, one of the best natural recovery ways that one can medicate with.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to go to the gym all the time many years ago, and I didn't start my workout before I had a joint. I'd stand in the parking lot and smoke a joint, and I'd go in and do an hour of cardio, an hour of weights, and then, hit the tanning bed and then go for a sauna and a hot tub and then go home, right? It was like workout and spa day all in one.
Exactly. It's like I've had I know we got to get on, but I've had some people question me, like, why would you want to, like, you're going out and having a walk in the woods. Why would you want to have a joint either before you go or even while you're there walking in the woods? Why wouldn't I?
Right.
Why wouldn't I? And until you've experienced that, I think it's kind of hard to explain it. And I don't think someone can really, truly understand what we mean about that, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
I get it.
I know you do. I know you do. But it's the ones who don't consume and can't understand. If you're happy already, why would you have something else that's gonna make what? I'm like I can't explain it.
No, there's something so grounding about smoking plant medicine while being in nature and having the concentration afterwards, because it helps us to concentrate and kind of like, break down all that stress in our brains to actually appreciate the nature that we're surrounded by right now.
Exactly. 100%. Anyways, I digress here. We got to get on here. Dan Dolgan, co-founder of Eaton Botanicals, sees the same trend at retail. We see customers who won't buy anything else once they find a product that works, he said. They're not chasing potency, they're chasing reliability. To accommodate this trend, retailers such as Ulta NYC in Manhattan are rethinking merchandising and rethinking thinking merchandising around effects rather than strain or THC level, which is interesting because many states, I don't know about if we have that here, but in many states, the tax levels are based on a sliding scale of THC levels.
Yeah.
There's some have multiple sets in the scale, like ranges, with like 2 or 3 different tax levels, depending on the THC level. And the higher it is, the higher the tax.
That's crazy.
So it's interesting to see this happening and to see what I'd be interested to see what's going to happen with legislation regarding the taxes.
For
Is
sure.
that going to roll back?
Yeah.
Anyways, how brands are formulating for function to avoid the potency race. Cannabis product makers are treating formulation less like flavor art and more like pharmaceutical design. Functional THC isn't a single molecule or a single dose. Levels, Emerson said, it's the correct THC dose in a trusted matrix for the intended moment. Now, if they're looking at standardized dose, I don't necessarily agree with that per se.
Everybody's metabolism is different.
Yeah. That's why my question went, they're treating the formulation like I kind of hesitated when I was talking there. They're kind of less taking away from the flavor art, which to me is the individual aspect of the plant, and make it more like pharmaceutical design. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I see the function of it. I see the purpose of it, but I see the dollars in it too.
Absolutely.
Functional THC isn't okay. I read that already. Levels development process blends empirical feedback, peer-reviewed research, and advanced machine learning to test for onset and peak and tail, favoring repeatable, easy to titrate profiles, he said. Meanwhile, Eaton Botanicals is developing low-dose gummies infused with adaptogens, plants, and mushrooms associated with well-being effects, as well as botanicals in collaboration with functional medicine partners at Indigo Wellness. We give them an effect, and they help us identify the right ingredients, but more importantly, the right doses, said Dolgan. Each batch is tested not just for compliance, but for taste, dosage, integrity, and consumer feedback, often requiring 4 or 5 variations before the team lands on a final formula. To sell the idea, Eaton hosts bud tender training and farm visits to help staff connect ingredients to their intended effects. Education is the most important thing we can do, Dolgan said.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Retailers catch on as shoppers buy by mood, not milligrams. Proof that the shift towards function over potency is now viable on retail shelves. At Ulta, products are organized by desired effects: rest, chill, relief, focus, and vibe. A move inspired by founder Vanessa Yi Chan's own confession as a new consumer. I found stores organized by brand or consumption method, but not by how you want to feel. She said, at Ulta, we want to make it simpler and more intentional. Vibe, Ulta's social energy category, drives the most traffic and repeat visits, while rest and chill products see the highest return purchase rates, Yi Chan said. Effects based on SKU, she noted, outperform strain-based sales because customers value consistency. Newer shoppers often start low and build confidence, while veterans explore more functional formats. That crossover, Yi Chan said, has boosted loyalty and overall spend, showing that clarity around effects can translate directly into stronger sales. Functional THC is still waiting on science to catch up. Functional THC's true potential, however, remains untapped. Fragmented regulations and limited research make education and standardization the hardest part of scaling, Emerson said. Research set on the standardized dosing and predictable effects remains limited across cannabis formats, a 2019 review found. The disconnect puts pressure on brands to improve what they promise and on retailers to sell outcomes responsibly. That reinforces why evidence-based labeling and formulation data are becoming the next competitive differentiators.
Right. And quickly here, making cannabis more like Tylenol than alcohol. The next competitive edge in cannabis may lie in delivering products that perform predictability batch after batch, which I don't see too much as a problem as a base, like a base supplement, as long as the formulation doesn't have any harmful or unnecessary fillers and stuff like that in it.
Yeah.
One would go out and get a like a nutritional supplement or a vitamin. Now, some of those there's studies coming out that some of those are not all that healthful. But I could see it being used as a baseline and then individually going from there.
Yeah.
For just day-to-day wellness and maintenance, right?
Yeah.
But having some individual stuff applied. But anyways, the future of functional cannabis will depend on discipline, under promise, over deliver, and design products that are easy to titrate, Emerson said. For manufacturers, that means stronger R&D discipline, validated ratios, and transparent data on outcomes. For retailers, it's about training teams to sell by effect and curating menus that reflect how people actually shop. And at least in Ontario, I know we have a lot of our recreational dispensaries that are like government licensed. They do have products arranged in the stores as to how you want to feel, type of thing, which is kind of interesting because it's borderline on medical benefits, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think we already kind of have medical dispensaries here, but they're not operating under any medical guidelines. But people are utilizing them for sure, such, and even products are marketed in some degree towards that way without direct claims, which are not allowed, right? I think it's just a kind of a way to just twist. You know how marketing is.
Yeah, for sure.
For retailers, training teams, okay. Consistency in education will separate real progress from noise in a crowded marketplace, Emerson said. Eaton Botanicals, Dolgan agreed, calling functionality the bridge to normalization. He believes it will expand cannabis reach beyond traditional users. Functional cannabis reaches people who never thought it was for them, he said. When it feels like a safe everyday alternative to things like sleep aids or painkillers, that's what brings wider acceptance and legalization closer. And from that aspect, I agree. But it should be a clean product, not with garbage fillers that are just more harmful than the plant just itself.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
However that comes to be, or whatever it takes, that's where I think that needs to go personally. But that's my opinion. So anyways, time has gone on. We've gone over a little bit here. We are going to cover that last story next week, folks. So thank you all for joining us here this week on Ganja News Update on NOK Network, and for tuning in to our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites.
We hope you've enjoyed your update today on mainstream media coverage of cannabis news and information from around the globe.
And many thanks to our sponsors for making this show possible. And thank you to my joint host right on over here, Tara Simpson, and to you, our listeners, for joining us each week here on Meducation Mondays with Ganja News Update on NOK Network. Cheers, everyone. Good night. We'll see you next week.
Ganja my meditation, ganja my brain. Ganja we take away my stress and strain. Ganja my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away my stress and pain. Ganja my meditation, ganja in my brain. Marijuana take away the stress and pain. Ganja is the medication, ganja is the cure. Police of them a fight the marijuana for sure. Pure purify me heavens and I make me feel pure. 100 ways to cali with me, bring it on tour. Ganja in the meditation, ganja in my clothes. No offense, I'm smoking marijuana around you. Ganja in the daily, ganja me currency. Ganja is the currency and daily pay. Give me the revelation.